Hello, Blue Boy. He's skeetering away. Let's see if he sings to us at all. I'll see if I can edit that out or in or whatever. Well, hello. My name is Phil Cobbin. Let's try that again. Hello, my name is Phil Cobbin. I'm the builder of November 672 Papa Charlie that was struck by a Cadillac at Cottonwood Airport in Arizona back on June 23rd of last year. And how you doing, Chip? And I just want to give an update on how we're doing on the airframe. It's flying. I was doing some work on synthetic vision, trying to get ready to go to Oshkosh when I get this call that someone hit my wingtip. And when I got there, I'd say that's a little bit more than a wingtip got hit. So I want to go through a little bit of the repair history and get that out of the way, and before I start going back to some synthetic vision videos that I'm getting ready to do. So first off, let's talk about the accident, okay? Gentleman parks a fairly new Cadillac, says he left it in drive, turned the ignition off, went into a hangar to talk to people, and about over an hour later on a windy day, the wind gets it and it starts moving. And from the surveillance video, that kind of makes sense because it starts off with a fairly tight radius, and as it proceeds northbound, the radius of the turn opens up, which would tell me that the steering's not locked, and he actually hits that Cessna 182's tail cone and then had to be replaced. So the Cessna took some fairly minor damage just to the one piece. Unfortunately, you can see he slams into my right leading edge based on the surveillance footage and measuring the tarmac and doing the calculations for acceleration. It looks like it was doing about 10 miles an hour when it hit, so it actually is backing up when it hits me. People have asked me, did you land on that thing? No, it hit me. And so we had to bring out a D&O crane to come out and lift this airplane off, because you just can't do this with a floor jacket, you get somebody killed. So D&O crane had to come out, bring a boom truck out. I had to stand on his trunk, take the top cowling off the engine so we could wrap a sling on the engine mounts to lift it. But when you do that, you're vulnerable to tail bumping on the tail for which should be obvious reasons. So while the boom operator is lifting it, I had to actually get a hold of the tail section and make sure keep it from hitting the ground and not doing any more damage. So it gets hit, contact the hull carrier, and I learned a nasty lesson as a builder that you have to check your hull carrier insurance if you're a builder, because apparently most, if not all, of these insurance carriers will claim that if you do the repair work, which you are legally allowed to do by the FAA, because you are the manufacturer of that of the airframe. So I'm the manufacturer of that airplane, not Jan's Aircraft. They remember the kit supplier. And so they were only going to pay $15 to repair it. So at that point, there's no use point having much of a discussion with them. And so I take it up with the gentleman's insurance carrier, which was Farm Bureau, and they were actually pretty good to work with. I was fairly impressed with them. They were nice to work with. And we settled this for $70,000, okay, which is more than enough for me to get the parts to repair it. And basically, I wind up probably making about $130 an hour or so to repair it, because the rebuilding of that wing, between the inspections and the rebuilding of the wing proper, is way over $400, more closer to $500. So how did we settle it? How do we make sense of this disaster? I mean, it's very stressful. And what I did was I went out to VREF, which is a professional aircraft appraiser. And in fact, not only did I go out to VREF, but I got Jason, who's the president of VREF, and I sent Jason my inspection report, which now is a permanent part of my airframe logbook, and that's about a 36-page report reviewing everything I could find out about the damage and documenting it. Okay, that's going to be really important on the valuation of this diminution of value. I'll show up in a moment. So I packaged that up and I sent that to Jason, and I had a bunch of other materials that I'd come across, basically highlighting how the aircraft was built. That was what was unique about it, because the nose wheel is a custom formed aluminum nose wheel that I designed the tooling to make, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of extra manufacturing engineering, if you will, that went into this, because I have a background as a machinist and as a manufacturing engineer. And I put that into the build of the airframe originally on its quality. So sent this to Farm Bureau with a demand on the high side, no surprise there. Took them over a month. They had to go find someone who's qualified as an aircraft appraiser. They do that. They come back with a counter offer, obviously not the same as mine. And Jason and I have a chat with that. And so I counter at 70, and they take it, because at that point I'm just trying to move on. I suppose one really wanted to be a stinker about it. I could have maybe goosed it to 80 or 85, but you know, pigs get slaughtered too. And I thought 70 was equitable, and they did. So I actually drove the notarized release down to them down in Chandler, and they gave me the check that afternoon. I can assure you my blood pressure substantially improved once I had that check in hand. But it was a lot of work to fix it, and I just want to go through real quick on some of the repair work that went in. And so let's go over here. I can a little easier control this. So the first thing, while it was being inspected, we had to take the wing off. It's obviously, if it's going to be repairable, the wing's got to come off. If it's not repairable, the wing's coming off just getting scratched out or something. So you see some of the damage where the car hit it, and it hit it just in front of that spar, thank goodness. About an inch further back, this would have been a totally different story. And it stops bumping into a little bit, just a little bit of firewall in the nose wheel. So this is how you take the wings off. You put these airbags under there to support everything, and you take this off. So this was taken off the weekend before Canyon State Inspections in Arizona came out to inspect it for cracks, because I wanted a crack inspection. There was a King Air was destroyed in the Wikia fire. The air boss and the pilot got killed, and the King Air lost a wing, and apparently there's an AD on King Airs for this. So I was very recently cognizant of that, and I was just deathly afraid of the potential for a hidden crack somewhere in the spar attachment, or anywhere in along the spar, and anywhere on the fuselage related to the impact. So I had Canyon State Inspection came out. Gentleman on the right is the inspector. The lady on the left is in training. She's a very highly credentialed A&P mechanic at all, but she has to do 2,000 hours of on-the-job training doing this specific eddy current inspection before she's allowed to go out and do an inspection and report. They came out from Chandler, drove up and inspected the wing and inspected the attachment points and the fuselage. They gave me a nice clean thumbs up. And very stressful to watch it though, because you just don't know. But we eventually did know. And so it was about $800 to get that inspection, and I gotta tell you, that's amply worth its money. Now, what had to be fixed? The outboard bottom skin was damaged from the roof, Cadillac sliding under it. The ribs had buckling in them, so those had to come out. And the entire leading edge had to be replaced, because obviously the outboard one was toast from the initial impact. But it turns out the fuel tank, as the Cadillac skied under it, did some buckling on, in particular, one of the ribs there. So the fuel tank had to be replaced. That's an assembly, but so the entire leading edge had to be replaced. Now on the bright side, he didn't lance a hole in that tank. Had he done that, we would have dumped about 10 gallons of aviation gas that was in it. That could have been set off, and this could have been a much more serious thing. So I told the gentleman when it happened, after calming down, and I gave him a hug because he was pretty upset. He knew he moused up pretty bad. And I said, look, no one got hurt and no one got killed. You got to look on the bright side. It's like this could have been a whole lot worse. No one got hurt and no one got killed. So anyhow, here she is in the uprights to be rebuilt, and that's how it was built first time. And that's the way I say you build these. You can build them on a bench, apparently. I don't recommend it. I prefer doing it with the uprights because then you can put plumb bobs down the wing and you can measure the wing for twist to make sure there's no twist in the construction. And that's how it was done the first time, so that's how we're going to do the rebuild. So here we are, we've done the drilling for the tank, drilling for the leading edge, and we're almost in the same position the wing was originally when it was built. A little bit different because the top skin's on, and back then when you're doing all this leading edge work, those skins, all those outboard skins are not necessarily on yet. In fact, neither are some of the other skins. So a little bit different, but not much. So you try to match how it was built the first time, and so you can follow the same procedures. And so, but I'm a little older and wiser about building fuel tanks, and so I spent a lot more time on some detailing on how this little attachment bracket in the front was machined to allow me to get in there with a squeezer and squeeze these things, and also the sequencing of which rivets get done when. This tank is equipped for inverted flight, so it has a flop tube that fits in there. So you have to see a little door, and that's the door to close the cell off. The hole in the rib is blanked off, so if I retain fuel. And there's a little diagonal brace there, and that brace is not really a brace, it's a guide, and that guide is to keep the flop tube from getting stuck in the fuel tank in a position that you can guarantee would not be the one you wanted in when the plane's upside down. Here we are, the fuel tanks. The fuel tank's a big part of doing these wings, by the way, because you have to use sealant and rivet the sealant in place. It's very slow going. You go through a lot of gloves, okay? And you got to tape everything off to keep the goop from getting everywhere. So I am here getting ready to finish the tank by riveting in place the back baffle. Now, because this is a tank with a flop tube, it has a different pickup setup. The pickup is in that second cell up there because that's the only place you can put the pickup. So it's actually on the back wall. The fuel tank is where the pickup is. So if you ever have to replace the sender, you actually have to take the tank off the wing to get at it. And here we are. We started, Canyon State inspection came out on July 21st, and now we're polishing in October. This is a full-time job putting this wing back together. And so I use a polishing compound called Nuvite, N-U-V-I-T-E, and some very specialized Swiss grinding pads. They're about a 1/4 inch thick, and you have to use a special oil called kangaroo oil, which is actually made in Germany, to do all the grinding. The oil gets on everything, and hence you see I'm wearing Tyveks, and I have my shoes all booted and whatnot, because this oil and all this stuff gets on everything. You got to use a respirator, but you can see it comes out really nice. You can, with this Nuvite material, you can get really a mirror finish on the wing, and if there's any overset rivets, they stick out like sore thumb because it's nice and shiny. But it's worth it once you get it done. So here we are in October 20th. We're ready to go back to the airport, and so she's ready to go take the trip back to Cottonwood, because the airplane's been sitting out in Cottonwood all these months with one wing missing. So I've been kind of a cause celebrate for visiting aviators coming through. And then by October 28th, we're ready to start test flying. The first test flight, I borrowed a parachute. My parachute was on order, which was financed through the settlement with the insurance company, but it takes a long time to get parachutes these days. So I borrowed a parachute from my original test pilot, and I disconnected the lift struts on the canopy, and I wore a flight suit that a Navy veteran of P3 Orions gave me, a lodge brother of mine by the name of Ralph Dowden, gave me one of his old flight suits. So I had a Nomex flight suit and gloves, and borrowed parachute, and we said, okay, gotta find out what happens. So we took it up and just did some mild, no real maneuvers what to speak of, just very basic stuff, make sure there's nothing obviously amiss. But so the first couple flights I wound up using a parachute, felt comfortable. We do fly without that for now. Later, when we do a lot more detailed high G type testing, then we'll be back with the parachute. But I now have the parachute, so courtesy of the Cadillac, he bought me a parachute, and it wasn't even Christmas either. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. What I would just tell builders to pay attention to your insurance policies, and always remember, if someone is responsible other than you for what happened, then you pursue those claims with the car carrier here. And one cautionary note is I had to keep asking Farm Bureau, do you have a coverage limit problem? Because in Arizona, if one were to have the minimum coverage, it would only be $20,000, and fortunately he had at least 100, or if not more, and he may have had an umbrella, and he was pretty wealthy, so I got a hunch he was pretty heavily insured. And in fact, the day this happened, he made a comment that his wife had bought him that Cadillac the year before as a birthday present. And I'll close it with this. I asked the Farm Bureau people when I brought the check, the release down, and they gave me the check, I asked them how much it cost to repair the Cadillac, and they said it didn't. They had to total it. And I think the reason why they had to total it is my tie-down ring tearing across his roof made a repair that you're going to find in an auto body shop cannot really repair. And the irony of ironies is the back window of that Cadillac did not get broken. All the damage to the Cadillac was on the roof. But anyhow, nobody got hurt. Nobody got killed. Very traumatic. Was a big blood pressure event for me. Very, very emotional for me because Kathy and I built this airplane. Hence the memorial cross on the tail, and there's a memorial plaque on the right side. So, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Be safe out there.